Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs to society. Welcome, all you rock dwellers. Welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today as my co-host is the Doctor for the Republic, Dr. Right, Dr. Nasir Shaikh. Nasir, welcome back to Conservative Commandos.
Rick, it's always great to be here with you. It's just going to be another 2.5 hours of just absolute, fun-filled stuff. But you know why it's so much fun?
Why is that?
Because guess what?
Guess what?
It's just another unbelievably great day to be alive and well and free and living in the US of A, the greatest country in the history of the world, bar none. Look behind you. Got the beautiful flag behind you. We've got our American flag paraphernalia on. Got the American flag in the background as well. What could be a sweeter sight than Old Glory wrapped around yourself? I mean, remember that when President Trump went on that thing and he hugged the flag?
I remember that at CPAC, and you and I were there, and I said, "That's it. That's the
picture.
That's the picture," and it's amazing.
Oh, and he's supposed to be a Russian spy. Remember that?
Yeah, remember. But a lot of people are using that on their Facebook and whatever.
Yep.
But, speaking of Facebook, Nasir,
the Book of Faces.
Well, as I've been talking about for the past 3 weeks, that our website, conservativecommandosradioshow.com, has been blocked by Facebook. I have been personally blocked by Facebook now. So now I'm personally blocked. Our show's website is blocked, and I'll tell you why I'm blocked. 2 years ago this is, I made a comment to somebody else's post. I made a comment, and I said that, again, commenting on the post, that therefore, gays should also seek mental help. Now, that's my First Amendment right to be stupid. If I can say what I want, that's the first. But 2 years ago, I made this comment. This morning, I was notified 2 years later that I have violated their community standards, and that I would not be able to post or comment on Facebook for 3 days. Something I said 2 years ago. So what that tells me, Nasir, I don't know why, I don't know who. Figure out why, I guess. But I don't know who would go back 2 years on my post to find that little gem, to report that to Facebook today.
But you know what? It's Facebook. There it is, right? We have ways of making you.
Oh, well, if we put that picture up on Facebook, that would get us banned too. You know that, right? Right. Hey, Nasir, just last week, we had Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler on with us, and she wrote an article. The Equality Act would lead to the death of women's rights. Remember that?
Oh, absolutely.
And in the article, we also talked about women's sports. Well, just this past weekend, a biological man who identifies as a transgender woman won the NCAA National Championship over the Memorial Day weekend. Franklin Pierce University runner Cece Telfler won the Division II Women's 400-meter hurdles on Saturday night, besting the second-place finisher by more than a second. Congresswoman Hartzler warned us that this exact same thing is going to happen, and she foresaw the death of women's sports.
I have a feeling that if I were a coach, and I was a conservative coach of a football team, that's not a football team, a soccer team, lacrosse team, a swimming team, a tennis team, to make a stand and to show how absolute ridiculous this is, I, as a coach, would literally talk to my students and tell them and say, we're going to be competing in women's sports this calendar year.
Right.
And I would just do it to prove an absolutely intercoursing point to everybody out there as to how damaging this would be and is going to be, just as you said, to women's sports. I mean, they talked about, I think it was a few months ago, you were talking about the NCAA in Connecticut. 2 transgender athletes. Guess what? One girl, transgender, came in second, but she was a transgender male.
Right.
Another transgender beat it or them or thou or whatever to come in first and second place. Now, you know what's happening is, Rick, a lot of these parents of actually what we call cis girls. So you got to understand the terminology. Cis means true biologic. So if you're a cis male, you are a true male. If you're a trans male, now you were a male, but now you became a woman. So so a cis female is actually a true biological woman who wants to compete and look and be a biological woman. So these cis females, 14, 15, 16-year-olds who have been working since middle school, are getting edged out. And now some parents are getting fed up with it, and they're saying, you know what, political correctness be damned. This is not right. Because it was happening once or twice. And when it happens to your child, that's something else.
Yeah,
I mean, it needs to be stopped.
And the title line, something else I want to tell you about this Cece Telfler. Telfler previously ran on the track team previously ran a variety of events on Franklin Pierce's men team, during most of which time he went by the first name of Craig, according to school records. Telfler competed in FPU's men's track team as recently as January 2018, according to published meet results from the Middlebury Winter Classic in Vermont. Telfler had started using the name Cece at that point while still competing on the men's team. Now, this is an athlete, a biological male, who participated on the men's team, I guess wasn't good enough, decided to participate as a woman. And according to NCAA policies, that's fine by them. NCAA policy is that male athletes who identify as transgender can compete on women's teams if they suppress their testosterone levels for a full calendar year. Otherwise, so-called mixed teams, which have both male and females, can compete in the men's division, but not in the women's division, according to NCAA rules. Now, here you go, Nasir. This opioid crisis. This opioid crisis is so bad. You cannot use steroids if you're an athlete. Even if you have an injury, you cannot use steroids. But
Correct.
You can suppress testosterone levels, and I have no idea how you do that. But to participate as a transgender. I mean, my God.
And the question now becomes is that when are they doing the testing? And even if they do that, Rick, if you talk to physicians, being one myself, all right, now I'm not in the sports athletes arena, but you can use blockers to try to block testosterone pathways. But even if you reduce it, the amount of free testosterone that is still in the bloodstream that has been forming the bones, forming the muscles, forming the athletic edge, as you want to call it. This is not being chauvinistic. This is just being scientific. This is using science. I thought the Democrats were all about using science, but only when it really isn't any science.
Right.
And so they still have a tremendous advantage. Bone structure, bone density. I mean, everything that you talk about, the span of the arc of your arm span, what they call the wingspan, the leg kick, the drive. I mean, everything that you talk about favors men. That's just the way that God intended it. Oops, said a wrong word there.
Well, just as I said 2 years ago, and it's now got me suspended on Facebook, I'll say it again. People that do this to themselves just to gain an athletic advantage, in my opinion, need mental help, need psychological help. The same way as drug addicts or the same way as alcoholics needs mental help. So do people who do this to their bodies. Hey, Nasir, we need to take a break, and then we can talk about our guest and get into a few other things. But this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Dr. Dr. Nasir Shaikh. And I love to say this during our show. Today's show, like all our shows, is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. We've got some great guests joining us today, and on the other side, we'll tell you who they are and what we're going to be talking about.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And welcome back. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Dr. Nasir Shaikh. I want to give a shout out to the folks who are listening to us on stations in Jacksonville, Tampa and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California, and now in Arlington, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., and also seen on the AUN television network and places that really need to hear us. San Francisco, Sacramento, San Jose, out in the golden state of California. What the once great state of California. Well, Nasir, we've got three great guests joining us. That's the hallmark of our show here on Conservative Commandos. Who will we be speaking with?
First guest is going to be Adam Andrezjewski. He is the CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com. It's the world's largest private database of government spending. He's going to be talking about healthcare transparency. Our second guest is going to be Benjamin Friedman. He is an adjunct lecturer at George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs. He's going to be talking to us about the U.S. military withdrawal, disentangling from Syria's civil war. And our final guest is going to be Dr. Peter Pry. He's the executive director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, director of the U.S. Nuclear Strategy Forum. He's going to be talking to you about us. He's going to be talking to us about U.S. submarines vulnerability. So that's an amazing article that he wrote. Absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. So again, 3 great guests will be joining us here. Well, Nasir, Sharon Angle and I were talking about this yesterday, how the state of Nevada, the governor, vetoes bills for national popular vote. And at that time, Sharon was thinking that the governor would actually sign this, but I guess the latest is he's vetoed this?
He has vetoed this. And this is something where if he had signed the measure, he would have had 195 votes. See, right now they have 189 votes. I think there's 14 states now that have committed to this. And this is a pact that the states can make by themselves. And once they get to 270, I mean, pretty much the way things have been shaping up with the popular vote the way it is, we're almost talking about literally ball game over in the United States of America. This is the way that they can circumvent the Constitution, the amendments, and everything on there. So this is not just something that's pie in the sky. I mean, you're talking 189 votes from 270. You're only talking 81 votes, Rick, that they literally need, if I did my math correctly, to do that. And as states start to flip, like, for example, if this governor didn't veto this, it passed. So that's why it's so important. Even at the national level, the state level, elections really, really, really matter. And we've seen that ourselves, just like you were talking about, we were jokingly talking about, well, I don't know if it's jokingly, but California. This is what happens when Democrats are put in charge of public policy. They ruin it for everybody else. And now we're looking at the fact that we're talking about ruining it for the United States of America. It would be very tough, very, very tough for a conservative or Republican if the popular votes of the electoral college votes go towards the person who won the electoral college, won the popular votes, popular votes. Even if his state, he won the state and he should have got the electoral college votes, he doesn't get them now. Right. It's just. So I know everybody talks about it and they say that it's never going to happen, but I'll tell you what, this is how the Democrats and the left creep up on us. It's that slow drip, 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 5 years, 10 years. Okay, maybe not in the next 50, 100. What about the next 200, 300 years as a republic? What about then? That's what we need to start thinking about.
No, Nasir, I've said this before. Justice Reagan is saying, I have it right in front of me. It's one of my favorite Reagan quotes. Freedom is never more than one generation from extinction. I say we are one election away from losing our freedoms. One elections. Everyone hears what the Democrats are proposing. The new Green Deal, open borders, free college for all, massive taxation. That's what they want. That's what they're going to go for just as soon as they get the House, the Senate, and a president. That's what they'll go for, Nasir. This is really scary stuff. And
it is scary,
I want to know when the Republicans are going to start to grow a pair and start to use the courts the way the liberals and the Democrats do. I can guarantee you, if this measure was going to benefit Republicans the way it will benefit Democrats, the Democrats would be in court suing to stop this.
Yeah, exactly. So what are the Republicans going to do? They're going to wait till the number.
Where are they?
Yes, where are they? Why don't they do it now? Every time some damn state goes ahead and allows this to occur and becomes a part of this compact of states, they should be getting the lawyers out there and suing these guys as derrieres right away and daring them and say, you know what, we're going to take this to the Supreme Court and let the Supreme Court decide on the constitutionality of this.
Well, it's going to end up in the Supreme Court.
It's going to absolutely.
But again,
it is.
All right. When is this going to get to the Supreme Court, and what is the makeup of the Supreme Court going
that's
to be
the
at
question,
that time?
Rick. Yes, absolutely.
Again,
that's
we are
the
one
question.
generation. Just think if Hillary Clinton would have won the presidency, the two members. Is that heart attack? the two members to the Supreme Court that Donald Trump nominated and got on the Supreme Court would have been Hillary Clinton's nominees, and you would have had the 5-4 liberal edge in the Supreme Court.
And you're exactly what you're talking about. People have said, "Oh, I've heard Republicans say, oh, wait a minute, you know what? When it gets to the Supreme Court, they'll strike it down because it's unconstitutional." And how do you know what the makeup is going to be from now? Just like you said, I mean, it's just these are stupid answers that we're getting from the people supposedly that we put in there because they're supposed to be smart enough to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, they're supposed to be, but they're not. So
they're not.
You see,
we keep sending idiots.
I saw something today in an article that talks about this is what happened when we elect celebrities and sports stars and personalities and bartenders. You know, this is what happens when we elect them to represent us in Congress instead of educated people, doctors, lawyers, radio talk show hosts. Let's say that. But, you know, we're only one election away. This is why we have to be forever vigilant, vigilant. Well, Nasir, we got another few minutes before we have to take another break, and I know you want to talk about the Mueller press briefing.
Oh, you know what? Here we go again. Now, this is basically, I want to make sure that I have this thing correct here. I put this thing down. And this is where he's basically talking about, and he says, Robert Mueller comes out and he says, if it were clear the president committed no crime, we would have said so. This is the whole thing. Look at the double-edged sword that Mueller is talking out of both sides of his mouth. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who blatantly, cowardly, and I think cunningly, deceptively, basically said, you know what, there's nothing here that I can do, but I'm going to basically put it out where collusion, no obstruction, I'm going to sort of give some wiggle room, and we're going to let Congress decide what to do, and I'm going to give them a little bit of a lane in which they can go ahead and drive it towards impeachment. Now, here's another thing. Go ahead.
That's okay, Nasir. I'm all for.
Absolutely.
I am all for the Democrats continuing their investigations. I am all for their continuing to drive for impeachment. I do believe the American people are going to get sick of this. The American people do not like instability in their government. They like their government to be secure. This is why impeachment of Bill Clinton was so unpopular, even though he was guilty.
Yes.
Even though he was guilty
and
of
he
perjury.
Was guilty, Rick. He was guilty. 9 counts. 9 counts.
He was guilty, but his impeachment was so unpopular with the American people, and it cost Republicans at that time. So at the same time, I say, look at the economy. Look at the things that Trump is doing. Trump is bringing jobs back into this country from this China tariff. The economy is booming. I think people are going to look at this and say, I can't follow along with this Democrat Party. You know, they are trying to destabilize our economy. They're trying to destabilize our way of life. I think it'll be a detriment to them. So I say, go for it, guys.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Absolutely. Because, you know, Rick, I believe, if my number is correct, I think there are 22 Democratic House members in which seats were flipped in the last election. But in those areas where they won the House seat, President Trump won the state by over 10 points. So these people promised their group of voters that they were not going to go to Washington to impeach, and they weren't going to go there to obfuscate. They were going to go there to do infrastructure and get jobs and defense, and they've done nothing.
Nothing.
And Trump is going to be on the ticket, obviously, in 2020. And then not only that, Rick, take a look at Facebook and look at Twitter and these other places. Every single time you see somebody new or anybody coming across, I've never seen a former conservative Republican say they become Democrat, but I've seen so many posts from people who said former libertarian, former Democrat, former leftist, and now I become a Republican. Or you've seen Black Americans switching over and saying, you know what, I was on the Democratic plantation and now I'm coming off. Latinos are doing the same thing. I don't think it bodes well. I know elections, we're still a ways away, but right now, like you said, all the things you mentioned, the stuff that's out there, he's definitely as an incumbent, and with all the good stuff that he's done. And you know what? He's promised what he said he was going to do. Isn't that what we elect a candidate to do? I don't care if they're not what you like, but he promised it, and it's about time.
It is about time.
Absolutely.
We usually get a candidate like Barack Obama who said, "Oh, I'm going to defend marriage. I'm going to uphold the defense." And then once he gets in, turns around and does just the opposite.
Absolutely.
Nasir, we do need to go to a break. And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And on the other side, we're going to be speaking with Adam. And I got to get this last name right.
Yes.
Andrezjewski. Adam Andrezjewski. And we're going to be talking about healthcare transparency. I know you will enjoy this subject, Nasir. Don't go away. We will be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, the doctor for the Republic, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll find our radio show, our TV show, a lot of great articles, a lot of terrific information. And with that, Nasir, we do have our first guest of the day with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Thanks, Rick. I certainly will. We have Adam Andrezjewski. He's the CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com. It's the world's largest private database for government spending. He's also a senior contributor at Forbes Opinion, and he's been a frequent radio and TV opinion commentator. Adam, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, great to be on the program. We believe that the transparency revolution, the open government movement, is revolutionizing United States public policy and politics.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. And we're going to be talking about, like you said, the healthcare transparency. Give us sort of an idea as to when did you form this? Why did you form it? Who are sort of some people that are sort of helping you? Was this something that, you had been thinking about for some time? Give us a sense of how this sort of came about.
Well, I'm a private sector entrepreneur, and in 2007, I sold my Yellow Page publishing company, and 1 year before Steve Jobs invented the iPhone. And so then I looked around for an issue that would have make an impact, and we settled on the issue of transparency, because you cannot solve problems that you cannot see. And at every level, federal, state, and local across this entire country, we believe that if you put every dime online in real time, you'll get better policy outcomes. You'll get better public policy debate. News articles in the nation's leading newspapers will contain better information, be more interesting to read, and make a bigger impact on the political class than if you didn't have that data. And so today, we've actually built the world's largest database of public sector expenditures. Our tagline slogan is every dime online in real time, and we have a constitutional basis. It's Article 1, Section 9, Sections 9, Clause 7 of the Constitution, and it says that a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public monies shall be published from time to time. And so we're executing on that. Last year we filed 60,000 Freedom of Information Act requests, and we've compiled a database of about 85 cents on every dollar taxed and spent at every level of government across the whole country.
So you and Tom Fitton must be blood brothers, basically.
And actually, former U.S. Senator Dr. Tom Coburn, he is our honorary chairman, and many people will remember his fearless leadership on transparency and accountability in the United States Senate. Time magazine in 2013 chose Dr. Coburn as one of the 100 most influential persons in the world.
Adam, one of the things when we talk about transparency is that why is it, for example, that when you talk to some physicians or you talk with people in the healthcare industry and you say that doctors who try to utilize transparent pricing within their practice, some of them have basically think that it's illegal or it's against insurance policies, but there are physicians out there. Are you familiar with the physician out in Kansas City by the name of Dr. Josh Umber, who's Atlas MD, and what he basically does is he charges people $50 a month for an adult from, I think, the age of 45 to 55. Then if you're above the age of 65, it's $75 a month. If you're 80 years and above, it's like $100 a month. Any child up to the age of 18 is only $10 a month. They don't charge you for any x-rays or EKGs. It's all part of the package. You pay the cost for x-rays. I think they're $5 an x-ray. Medical prescription costs are like 90% off of prescriptions, and they're doing it now. He got pushback from the Kansas City Medical Board and everything, but is it state to state, or is it some states more heavily regulated? He's being very transparent. Why can't that type of a program go nationwide?
Well, I think, the reason that we're pushing at openthebooks.com to open the books on healthcare pricing at every level in this country is because it's super expensive in the United States of America on healthcare. We pay twice as much than anybody else on an annual basis for healthcare charges. That's $3.5 trillion a year that roll back on we the people and the employers in this country. So who's profiting? And basically you have a situation where very large healthcare groups are profiting and the insurance industry. And we the people without, by and large, without access to what we have to purchase, we don't get to see the prices. And could you imagine if you were going to the grocery store, loaded up your cart, and you didn't know the price of any single item in the cart? But that's the way we buy healthcare. So there is not perfect pricing in this country. If there was perfect pricing, people would be on par with the providers. What you have is information asymmetry, and that creates power imbalances. And right now, we're pushing for transparency to get some power back to the patient, some power back to the people to be able to negotiate lower healthcare costs.
Exactly. I mean, like you said, why can't I call up a practice or whatever and say, listen, I need to get an x-ray or an EKG. How much are you going to charge? And we do that with everything, basically. We call and we find out.
So, Doctor, you're probably well aware, these insurance contracts with these major providers, they'll get deep discounts, 40 to 60% off the shelf rate list price of services. Whereas if you walk in with cash, the insurance contract would limit your discount to 10 or 20%. That kind of situation is not fair. When you open the books on this entire situation and providers have to disclose exactly what patients are actually paying, then there'll be a transfer of power and competition in the marketplace to further reduce prices.
Now, we always talk about this. Everybody says every election cycle, the candidates stand up there and they go, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and trim the fat. I'm going to go ahead and find the Medicare, and I'll find a couple of $1 trillion that we can utilize to, do whatever we need to do with. So give us an idea here, sir. Explain the amount of fraud that is in the healthcare market in terms of dollars that, people can understand.
So our honorary chairman, Dr. Tom Coburn, he delivered 4,000 babies before he went to the United States Congress. He just went on Fox and Friends last week and said that there's $150 billion in the system of waste, fraud, corruption, and taxpayer abuse. And I want to put some specific examples to that. You probably remember as one of the reasons in the year 2012, when Democrats passed the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, they said that they'll pay for large portions of Obamacare through reducing the waste, fraud, corruption, and abuse in Medicaid and Medicare. Right. And it never happened. Health and Human Services admits that in 2012, there was a stunning $64 billion worth of improper payments on Medicare and Medicaid payments that year. $64 billion. Today, that number is $85 billion. Not only didn't rein it in, but it is worse today than ever before. I mean, you've got $1 billion last year that was paid out of Medicaid and Medicare to dead people. You've got physicians that have lost their license to practice medicine that are still receiving federal payments on Medicaid and Medicare.
Is there any way to really clean this up? I mean, are we ever going to get to, every time people talk about it, do you really feel, if you shine the light on it, is that the only way the disinfectant is going to basically be, that to shine the light on it and then someone's going to say, stop?
So here's what we know. You cannot fix a problem that you cannot see. Now, I want to relate a situation on what we can see. Our team of auditors, about 3 weeks from today, is going to release a report on the top 100 public charities. These are the nonprofit, very large healthcare providers in this country. And here's one of them in my own backyard here in Illinois, Advocate Healthcare. They've got $8.5 billion worth of assets. Last year, their asset base went up by $1 billion. And you and I, the patient, we don't get to see the prices on what they're charging. These are public charities. Their CEO last year made $12 million. And again, we don't get to see the prices on what they're charging us on healthcare costs. I think it's grossly unfair. Now, here's a good point. There's progress. We are hearing that the Trump administration is going to mandate by some type of executive order, some type of executive mandate, real healthcare price transparency. Our report, we're either going to backstop an order that's already been issued or help galvanize public support behind such a policy.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are talking about healthcare transparency with Adam Andrezjewski. Adam Andrezjewski. How did I do that? Did I do okay, Adam?
You did. It's a complicated name.
And I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Dr. Nasir Shaikh, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. Don't go away. We will be...
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Hartman, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and they fall for the right time. It's too brutal.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir, Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And we're coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. If you have a comment or suggestion or want to contact me, or if you have a suggestion for a guest, you can always email me at rick@conservativecommandosradioshow.com. That's rick@conservativecommandosradioshow.com. And we're talking about healthcare transparency with Andrezjewski. He's the CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com. Adam, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Well, it's great to be on the program. We think that there's probably 85 to 90% popular support to open the books on healthcare pricing in this country. Everybody wants to know how much it costs because at the end of the day, you and I, we're all paying for it and paying dearly for it.
Adam, when you talk about healthcare transparency, what does that include? Where do you look? Doctors, hospitals, where do you take this when you talk about healthcare transparency and putting a spotlight on it?
Well, it's a great question because, and I want to tell you why. The price transparency has to go on what people are actually paying. And that's why it has to start with the providers. And the Trump administration, we think that there is a lot of momentum to open the books, to come up with an administrative rule that would force healthcare providers to open the books on the prices being paid for by patients. That's the critical thing. On January 1st this year, hospitals were required to disclose list prices on their website. Here's the problem, and I'm going to use a car analogy. You've got a manufacturer's suggested retail price with a car, and nobody pays that. That's equivalent to the list price that's now on hospital websites. But if you shop for a car, the MSRP helps you because most people pay between 90 cents and 99 cents on the dollar to MSRP. That's not the case with the list price of a hospital. Insurance providers are able to negotiate prices at 34 cents on the dollar. So right now you've got hospitals posting list prices on their website that nobody is even coming close to paying. So it's useless information.
Adam, when you talk about OpenTheBooks.com and putting a spotlight on waste, fraud, and abuse of healthcare and government, I think that this probably scares the hell out of politicians if they really think that people are going to do that, really think the general public is going to do that, because I believe they know how much there is. And as you say, every election, we're going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, and with all these savings, we're going to do this, that, and the other, and this, that, and the other always gets paid with more taxes. Am I right? And so what's the solution?
You're right. And there is a legalized money laundering scheme in Washington, D.C. I'm not breaking news on your program tonight. At OpenTheBooks.com, we just took a look at Fortune 100 companies. And in the top 10, there are 4 healthcare providers. The other 6 in the top 10 are actually providers to the defense industry. But healthcare providers, they have a significant seat at the table. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year on lobbying Capitol Hill. The Fortune 100 collectively spent $2 billion over a 4-year period on lobbying these politicians. And they use this in a heavily government-regulated industry like healthcare or education or defense to fence out smaller and medium-sized competitors. So these large healthcare providers, with the insurance companies, with the politicians, the institutional force is not to release the prices, to empower regular people to make their own decisions. Thank God the Trump administration on their own is battling the entrenched institutional power, and hopefully will institute this rule to open the prices to empower we the people.
Last week, U.S. Senators Lamar Alexander and Patty Murray introduced a draft legislation package that aims to lower health care costs by ending surprise medical billing, enhancing transparency of pricing for health care services, and lower prescription drug costs. Adam, we hear this all the time. You know, is this just more words coming out of Washington, or is anything, you expect anything to change?
So I do expect things to change, and here's why. The current system is completely unsustainable. I mean, just think about this. Last year, there was a study done in 2018, and the average family across America pays $20,000 in terms of health care costs every single year. You just cannot pay that amount of money as a regular American before the system starts to break down. This is a heavy cost and weight on private enterprise in this country, on the economy, on job growth. Something has to give. What you just referenced was bipartisan legislation in the United States Senate that would create healthcare price transparency, and that would bring reforms to other parts of the system. This is a necessary first step.
Right. Adam, what about shopping for a doctor? You know, I'm a big believer that we need to be our own advocate when it comes to health care. How would you advise someone to shop for a doctor? I mean, it's tough. It's tough to get a hold of a doctor these days. I've been through this. I really don't have a private doctor right now. I go through one of these minute clinic things. But what advice would you have for somebody who wanted to shop for their own doctor?
So most, 62% of Americans, I believe, are in employer-sponsored plans. Yeah. Now, 40% of those people have high deductibles, so they still would benefit from healthcare price transparency because, they're paying out of pocket for these services. So to answer your question, most people depend on the insurance companies to negotiate the best deal for them. However, with 40% of people paying these high deductible employer-based insurance packages, all of us in that circumstance would also benefit from healthcare price transparency.
Adam, what do you feel about healthcare sharing ministries?
Well, I think it's a great option. Look, I've got 5 sisters. I was the oldest of 7 kids, and many of my sisters and their families. She's a real saint. And my sisters use these healthcare ministries. They've had a fantastic experience with them. They do try to shop on healthcare price, and the providers that serve these ministries are much more open than regular providers with their pricing structures.
Adam, I hate to be pessimistic, and it has down here, Obamacare was a huge push to expand Medicare, and to try to take over what is left of the private healthcare industry. I really do believe that the only way to shed a lot of this is you got to get government out of the healthcare business. Do you ever see that as ever going to be a possibility?
Well, I think we have to take strides to limit the government's role in the healthcare industry. And obviously, there was a massive takeover of the industry in 2012 with the passage of Obamacare. And what has happened to the price of healthcare? We were promised that it was going to go lower, and it has just spiraled out of control into crisis. So I think the lesson learned is to limit government as much as possible. I think you have to take steps in that regard, and that's why it's critical that we all encourage the administration and the President Trump, to issue that order to open the prices, the actual prices people pay for healthcare, so we can actually see what's going on.
Adam Andrezjewski, founder and CEO of OpenTheBooks.com. We want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Please tell our audience how they could follow you, anything you write. Check out OpenTheBooks.com. How would they do that?
So just come to OpenTheBooks.com, click on our interactive map on the homepage, and search the public employees' salaries right in your own backyard. We've got virtually every single public employee's salary record from every level of government in the entire country online. And I think that would be about the best way to interact with the audience.
I love it. I'm going to be there. I'm going to check out these guys.
They're making a lot of money.
I don't even want to think. Don't even want to think about it. Maybe instead of being in the Yellow Pages business or the doctor business or radio talk show host, I don't know. Maybe we missed our calling and should have went into government.
Well, we've got 22 million records. The #1 record was the football coach in Alabama, Nick Saban, and he lost the national championship. He made $12 million last year.
Oh, wow. All right. Football coach would be another one. Andrezjewski, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
God bless you.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir, Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Our next guest is going to be Benjamin Friedman, and we're going to be talking about the U.S. military withdrawal, disentangling from the Syrian civil war. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And thank you for staying with us. This is a Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasir, Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll find our radio show, our TV show there, a lot of terrific articles and a lot of great information. And with that, Nasir, our next guest is with us. Please welcome him to the show.
Thanks, Rick. We have Benjamin Friedman. He's a policy director at defensepriorities.org. He's also an adjunct lecturer at the George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs. He's previously done work as a defense analyst at the Cato Institute, researcher at the Center for Defense Information, edited 3 books on defense policy and strategy, published many, many academic essays in international security, political science quarterly, foreign affairs, world affairs, op-eds, many outlets, including the New York Times, LA Times, USA Today, Politico. You name the outlet, he's done the op-ed. Benjamin, welcome to the Conserve Commandos radio show.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to be on.
Well, great. Well, we wanted to talk to you about the article that you had written about U.S. with military withdrawal, disentangling from Syria's civil war. But before we get to that, can you give us an idea to our audience, those that are listening and watching us, what exactly is, what do you do at defensepriorities.org?
We're a think tank that is promoting a realist foreign policy for the United States. That is one that would be tough but restrained. So we want to sort of conserve or preserve American power rather than, in our opinion, wasting it or letting it be used in a poor way through all these wars and excessive spending. And I'm policy director, so I help kind of figure out what kind of studies and writing we want to do. We're a young, relatively small think tank that's hopefully growing.
Would you say that one of your is one of your tenets, or maybe not the tenet that you sort of utilize? What is the what is that now in Taste way say where America should be the policeman of the world? Where's your sort of thinking along those lines?
I don't agree with that, and I think that defense priorities' general opinion is that America should be for America, that we should be protecting American interests abroad and promoting American security. That means cooperating with allies sometimes. It doesn't mean total unilateralism, but being the policeman of the world, I think, is a job that we can't do. It's overly expensive and causes a lot of trouble. And besides its impossibility, we shouldn't really want it. It's more trouble than it's worth by a long shot. So we have enough problems to deal with without going and looking for them, basically by trying to be the world's cop.
Well, that was a great answer, because it segues right into my next question, which is basically, in terms of your article, why should the average American care whether or not we stay in Syria or leave Syria? I mean, one of the things that's always happened, it seems, that our people that we send to Washington, D.C., why is it that they always get it wrong? For example, they always say it's better to know the devil who's there than the devil you don't. So we got rid of Mubarak in Egypt, and then, we had the Muslim Brotherhood come in. And then you're destabilizing, obviously, with Bashar al-Assad in Syria or whatever. I guess there have been proponents that have said they want to take him out. Others in the government, the defense areas, have basically said, no, let's not be that hasty or whatever. But what would happen if Syria fell under the hands of Russia, or stayed Syrian, or under the hands of the Iranians? What would be the harm to national security of the United States if that occurred? Because that's the thing that you hear from the other side.
Yeah, well, I think that U.S. interests in Syria are a function of our broader interest in the region. And if we look at it that way, you can sort of say, I think more easily, that while Syria is not totally unimportant, we shouldn't be taking the risks that are necessary or are entailed by keeping troops there. That is, there's nothing that Iran can gain, or that Russia can gain even, in Syria that's going to propel them to being greater powers elsewhere, or at least very little. I don't think that it's a big prize. It's not a strategic prize, Syria. They're going to be, to the extent that the Iranians are exercising some control there, along with the Assad government, they're presiding over a sectarian tinderbox, and it's sort of trouble for them. I don't think it's kind of a winning combination. And the United States is not risking nothing by being in Syria. Far from it. We're risking potentially large wars with a number of, actually several different powers, not just Iran, but Russia, even Turkey, and the Assad government. And I think that those risks individually might be small, but when you have, you're risking several disasters at once, your overall risk is pretty large. And I think the upside now of keeping troops there is basically zero. So I think it's just a bad proposition. I think I'm not hawkish towards Iran. I think I'm very critical of the current trajectory of U.S. policy towards Iran. But what I would say is that even if you are more confrontational towards Iran than me, I don't think that Syria is the arena in which you would want to confront Iran. It's closer to their home. It's a place where they've been invited by the government, where their militias can travel freely through Iraq, where we have only 400 troops. So it seems to me sort of, even if you're looking for a fight with Iran, a stupid place to have it. So I don't think there's a lot to be gained in Syria, and we can certainly talk about the question of ISIS's revival and whatnot. But I don't think that justifies our presence there either.
I mean, obviously, Bashar Assad is a psychopathic, maniac, and what he's done to his own people is, beyond tragic and beyond words or whatever. But if we had gotten rid of Assad, or by some chance, something were to happen to Assad, what would happen to wouldn't there be an instability in Syria that at least with, him there's stability within the region, even though we may not like the man for what he's done?
Yeah, I think that this is going back to the phrase you used before, a situation where the devil might be worth not gambling on necessarily, but not trying to overthrow. So Philip Gordon, who was in the National Security Council for Obama, who was involved in a lot of the policies that the Obama administration made in Syria, said, in retrospect, he said, we didn't handle that very well, in that, we, even if the rebels we were funding, separate from the effort to defeat ISIS, but the rebels we were funding to go after Assad, had they succeeded, he said, it might have been a catastrophic success in the sense of something like Libya, where you destabilize, or even Iraq in a sense, where you destabilize the country, and people who are jihadists, who are maybe in some sense worse than Assad, take over, where nobody takes over really, and it's just this sort of Lebanon that burns in civil war for a longer period even, and things are not even, there's no improvement for Syrians, even though this admittedly brutal dictator is gone.
Well, Obama always said that, to fight ISIS, one of his quotes, I believe, was that this is going to be a generational war, that, where there's no way that we're going to be able to, wipe them out completely, or to, capture, some of the lands that they've already done. It's got to be done slowly, at a certain pace or whatever. Now you hear, for example, that, the caliphate, in terms of land mass or whatever, has literally, from whatever it was, has 98% of it, that they've lost. That supposedly 40 to 50,000 ISIS fighters at one time. Now you're talking, in the thousands or whatever. Is that the sense that you're getting, or is that just spin that we're getting, from the people in Washington, D.C.?
No, I mean, it was.
And a follow-up to that, follow-up to that is, who do you think basically should get the credit if those things are, are occurring, or have occurred?
Sure. Number one, it was 98% 6-8 months ago. Now it's 100%. All their caliphate is gone, kaput, nothing more. There's no ISIS flags flying in Syria or Iraq, and I think that it's sort of amazing the extent to which at least here in Washington, that people just disregard that and say it doesn't mean anything. It's not a meaningful victory. ISIS evidently does not have the opinion that it doesn't matter whether or not they have a physical caliphate. They tried very hard to keep their physical territory. And I think that there are real advantages for them as terrorists or insurgents to having territory in terms of their ability to organize, train, conduct attacks, and to inspire idiots from around the world to come fight for them, or to blow things up in their own country. So they had an allure, not an allure that would appeal to decent, normal people, but an allure that appealed to some disaffected people who became terrorists, that I think was a result of their success on the battlefield. It was an impressive achievement to create a territory the size of England there in the deserts of Iraq and Syria, and taking that away from them, I think, undercuts their allure and makes us a little bit safer. I mean, it's a real, meaningful victory that we shouldn't just say, well, now they're just going to become a clandestine terrorist organization. I think that the problem with staying there to go after a remnant of ISIS that's hiding or is just a terrorist organization with no home is that, number one, even with 2,000 troops, let alone 400, we can't police all of Syria. Even if the Assad regime would let us, we can't police all of Syria going after terrorists with anything close to that. And we'd need way more troops to do that. And as we know from past experience, we might be causing as much trouble as we're solving. So happily, there's a number of other people in Syria, actually almost a line of people who are lined up, queued up, as they would say in the UK, to go after ISIS. And this is relevant also to who gets credit for going after them, right? The Kurds.
The Kurds.
The Kurds who were in the YPG, which we changed the name of, so we put a few non-Kurdish Arabs in there to make it a little more non-sectarian, but it was really the Kurds who did the bulk of the fighting and the dying, at least on the Syrian side of the border, to go after ISIS. The Iraqi government, after its pathetic collapse in 2016 in Mosul, got its act together a little bit with some U.S. help and retook Mosul. They deserve some credit. And like it or not, our adversaries are also anti-ISIS and deserve some, although less credit. I mean, Assad wasn't focused on dealing with ISIS for a long time because he had problems closer to home in Damascus with the rebels of the Free Syrian Army and al-Nusra. But the Assad regime is not a fan of ISIS and did eventually go after it, and the Russians bombed them. So, and the Iranian Shiite militias hate ISIS as much as anybody. So there's a number of people who are happy to go after ISIS, and I think we don't need to be at the front of the line. And the final thing I'll say about that is leaving Syria doesn't prevent us, if need be, from doing a strike or a raid or something of that sort against ISIS if they sort of pop back up. But I think sitting there with the U.S. troop presence is not helpful in that way.
Here in the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are speaking with Benjamin H. Friedman. He's the policy director at Defense Priorities, and we're discussing about withdrawing from Syria's, or disentangling from Syria's civil war. Don't go away. We will be right back right after this short break.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasir Shaikh and yours truly, Rick Trader. Want to give a shout out to the folks who are listening to us on stations in Jacksonville, Tampa and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and seen on the AUN television network in California. Our guest this segment is Benjamin Friedman. He's a policy director at Defense Priorities, and we're talking about U.S. military withdrawal, disengaging from Syria's civil war. Ben, thank you for holding through that break. We always appreciate your time. Ben, let's talk about the mission, okay? When Obama, without congressional authorization, ordered U.S. forces to intervene in Syria, the mission was clear: liberate ISIS-held territory. Was it really a clear mission, or did it become muddled, Ben? Because it seems like, okay, we'll get rid of ISIS, okay, we'll get rid of Assad, okay, we'll stop the atrocities. Seemed to got a little bit mishmashed here. Am I right on that?
Absolutely. I mean, we kind of had two missions, right? Maybe one war, two missions,
right.
Where on the one hand, we were funding rebels from the Free Syrian Army. Obama always seemed sort of reluctant to do that as much as his critics would have liked, but we were funding these rebels to overthrow Assad. Their aim was to overthrow Assad and put in place a new government of Syria. So that was a regime change mission, even though we weren't heavily committed to it. We didn't use troops for that. And then we had a second mission that we committed troops and our air power to, which was to go after ISIS after they became such a virulent force back in 2014. And I think that mission succeeded. It made sense, I think, at least to a considerable degree to do that. And now that we've succeeded, I think we should end it. And then, but we've started to, in the other mission, which the Trump administration ended 6 months into office, when we ended our CIA assistance program for the rebels, which was already quite late. We should have ended it earlier, in my view. We never should have started, in my view. That idea that we should go after Assad has kind of bled into the argument for what we're doing with the troops that were there to go after ISIS and help train the Kurds. So people will say, well, we need to stay there to, deal with Assad and to limit Russian and Iranian power, or to eject the Iranians from Syria. So there's sort of these series of missions that are getting tossed around, and we're saying we're going down to 400 troops, right? Probably there's about another several hundred at least covert operatives or something like that. But however you want to slice it, less than 1,000 Americans are not going to be able to accomplish much. It's just not that many people. It's not that much firepower. Well,
are they there to be on the front line, or are they there for as in an advisory training capacity?
They're primarily in advisory training capacity now, especially now that we were doing airstrikes before. Now there's no airstrikes going on against ISIS because the ISIS caliphate is gone.
Yeah.
So we're still working with the Kurds, and we have this whole diplomatic effort to figure out how we're going to deal with the Kurds, whether or not they should cut a deal with the Assad regime to kind of go back to where they were before the war, which is what I would favor, which is say, look, the Kurds were not being slaughtered by Assad before the war. They were getting along okay. Not great, but they had a militia, the YPG, and they were living. And they can have that. I think the Assad regime would be happy to let them go back to where they were. But what they can't have, I don't think the Assad regime would tolerate a little independent Kurdish statelet. And they want us to hang around and basically write checks to them to have a little state and defend them. And I think that
they
would
always like us to write the checks. They always like the good old Uncle Sam to write those checks. Ben, let me ask you: 3 years ago, ISIS seemed to be a very scary thing. I mean, wow, they came out of nowhere. They took over places in Iraq that Americans died getting in the first place. They seem to be pretty invincible. And now, a year and a half into the Trump administration, they have really been beating back. What did Donald Trump do right that Barack Obama was doing wrong?
Well, I think this might be a somewhat disappointing answer, but not that much. I mean, he continued the policy. I mean, I think even when Trump was campaigning, he said, "I want to bomb the S out of ISIS," right? Well, okay, so he wanted to slightly what that worked out to in practice was, we're going to keep doing what we're already doing a little bit harder. So we're doing airstrikes, we're going to do airstrikes a little bit more. And we did intensify airstrikes, and I think that did help accelerate the end of ISIS. It also caused a fair amount of civilian carnage, but I'm not sure that was avoidable, in Mosul in Iraq, and then in Raqqa in Syria. But it worked. So Trump intensified what the United States had already been doing, and so I think he could have some credit for that. But it wasn't some fundamental reversal of what the Obama administration was doing. I would also say, again, I'd give them credit for saying, look, enough with the CIA training program for these feckless, or at least fractured and ineffective pre-Syria army rebels. Right. We're going to cut that off, which maybe the Obama administration would have done themselves sooner or later.
Benjamin Friedman, Policy Director of Defense Priorities. Ben, what do you want the American people to be doing? Why do you come on shows like Conservative Commandos and talk about this? What is the mission of defense priorities? What is the objective?
Well, we want to have a more sensible foreign policy, and President Trump, I think, has some good instincts in this regard. He's got some advisors who I think are leading him astray. So we want to create more support for policies like exiting Syria and stopping our efforts that have been going on for several administrations at the least to try to sort of manage the politics of the Middle East. Sunni versus Shia, Saudi versus Iranian, whatever, whether it's in Syria or Yemen or beyond, because we think that's been kind of a tragic mess that we don't really need to be a part of.
Well,
so we're promoting that view.
Ben, this idea of nation building, this idea of these surgical wars, I remember Vietnam, and since Vietnam, we've had other similar situations. I go down to Washington, I see that wall, I see that there's 58,000 names on that wall. To me, represents 58,000 destroyed families. And I go, for what? When we look at what took place in Iraq and Egypt and Libya, where we went in there and tried to regime change, and by and large, I think we've gotten very little for it. Especially in Egypt and Libya, it seems like a real mess was made there. I wonder about the wisdom of getting into these conflicts with these limited wars. I mean, we won World War II because we totally destroyed Germany, we totally destroyed Japan, we totally destroyed their ability to make war, we totally destroyed their stomach for war, and that, to me, seems to be the only way to win a war, not these surgical adventures. Am I right or wrong in thinking on that, Ben?
I generally agree with you. I think that we should have a policy that's roughly, if you're going to have war, really have war. War is deadly, brutal business. We shouldn't do it a lot. We should try to minimize how often we do it, and when we do it, we should use effective force. I do think there's some room in the sort of, Karl von Clausewitzian war is politics by another means sense for some limited war. You can't have every war, if it's going to be a servant of politics, be totally unlimited. But in general, yeah, I think we now have an idea that the use of force are like scalpels, that, we're doing very fine work. We're going to build a little democracy and keep the Turks off the Kurds back in Syria and undercut the Assad regime and force the Iranians out. And it's not a scalpel, it's a sledgehammer. So sledgehammers can do some real damage, right? They can do some good things if we need them. But thinking that we have this magical kind of laser beams, another analogy, is a big mistake, I think, that was particularly prevalent in the Obama administration, when we sort of, we stopped trying to have the big nation-building wars, but we sort of kept a lot of the same objectives and said, well, we'll just sprinkle little uses of force here and there and we'll accomplish all these great things. I think it's a myth that's been with us for a long time.
Benjamin Friedman, Policy Director at Defense Priorities. How can our audience follow what you guys do and learn more?
Well, we have a Twitter account at Defense Priorities, and we're online, as you said, at defensepriorities.org. And hopefully we'll be coming out with more and more stuff as we get bigger and more productive here for people to keep track of and get a sense of where we can do a little better on foreign policy.
All right. Benjamin, we want to thank you for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Take care and God bless.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Our guest this segment was Benjamin Friedman. He's a Policy Director at Defense Priorities. And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasir, Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. He's the Executive Director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security and Director of the National U.S. Nuclear Strategy Forum. And he's going to ask and hopefully answer the question, are U.S. submarines vulnerable? Don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir, Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And once again, for rebroadcasts, please check out our website, ccrshow.com or CCRS Network. You'll be able to find rebroadcasts of our radio show, our TV show, a lot of terrific articles, and a lot of great information. And Nasir, we do have our next guest with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Thanks, Rick. We have Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, who's the Executive Director for the Task Force on National and Homeland Security and is the Director of the U.S. Nuclear Strategy Forum. He's with both Congressional Advisory Boards. He served on the Congressional EMP Commission, the Congressional Strategic Posture Commission, the House Armed Services Committee, and also with the CIA. He's the author of Blackout Wars and EMP Manhattan Project. Dr. Pry, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
For having me.
Well, we wanted to talk to you about your article, Are U.S. Submarines Vulnerable? But give our listeners and viewers out there, what is it that your organization and what is it that you sort of do on an everyday basis? What are you trying to provide information to, and who are you trying to, who are you hoping, sees this information other than the general public?
Congressional Advisory Board and a nonprofit. We're the successor to the Congressional EMP Commission. And our job, is to try to educate public and policymakers on the existential threat faced by our civilization from a natural or nuclear EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, which can be created by the sun in the form of a geomagnetic superstorm like the 1859 Carrington event that could basically end global civilization. I mean, an EMP will overload electric grids, all kinds of electronics. We're an electronic civilization. We can't survive without electricity. The sun can do this, and we'll do it someday for sure if we don't protect our electric grids and our electronics from the natural EMP. And man can do this too by means of a nuclear weapon, nuclear EMP attack. You'd only need one weapon detonated at very high altitude. Even North Korea can do this. In fact, they've got 2 satellites orbiting over us that might be armed for a surprise EMP attack. And with one weapon, they could take down all of North America. 90% of our population could die in a year from starvation, disease, and societal collapse. And we're trying to get government, states, private citizens up in arms to do something about this problem. We know how to protect the electric grid and our civilian critical infrastructures, but we haven't done it. President Trump, much to his credit, is the first president who has listened to us. In fact, President Trump has delivered on a promise he made to me before he became president. I briefed him on EMP when he was first running for president at the Iowa caucuses and told him how we had been vulnerable to this existential threat in part because no government department and agency wanted to take responsibility for it. The Department of Defense said it belonged to the Department of Homeland Security because the sun could cause an EMP, and that's a natural threat. The Department of Homeland Security said terrorists or Russia or China could make a nuclear EMP attack, therefore it's a DOD problem. And the Department of Energy, which has too cozy a relationship with the electric power industry, says, well, this is a national security problem, and it doesn't have anything to do with us at all. So President Trump said, don't worry, when I'm elected president, we'll knock their heads together and get this problem fixed. And on March 26th, he signed an executive order on EMP that basically does exactly that. He takes control of the EMP problem at the White House and doesn't trust any of the departments and agencies. The White House is going to be running what I called, this is what I had recommended in my book, an EMP Manhattan Project, to be run out of the White House and not to trust the departments and agencies, which are so dominated still by the deep state. And he knocks their heads together and says, all of you are responsible for solving this problem. Everybody's got a piece of it. And he doesn't trust them to solve the problem either. The executive order gives all of the departments and agencies homework assignment. Within less than a year now, by next March 26th, they all owe the president certain technological and policy tools that will equip the White House with the means to rapidly implement the recommendations of the Congressional EMP Commission so we can protect not only the electric grid, but all life-sustaining critical infrastructures. And that is what we have been working toward at the federal level. We are not out of the woods yet, though, because, it's an enormous obstacle that the president faces from his own government. There are all kinds of deep state bureaucrats. The electric power industry has $145 million a year to pay in lobbying Congress and members of the administration to do nothing, as they have done for years. President Trump's got to overcome all that. So this is the time that it's necessary to fight harder than ever to try to help the president implement his policy. And I wouldn't wait for Washington or for the president to be successful. I think the states can protect their electric grids on their own, and that's another thing we do, is we try to educate the states. My book, Blackout Wars, for example, has got draft legislation. All the governor would have to do is sign that draft legislation in the book, and he would put his state on the way to becoming protected from EMP.
Give us a sense. I mean, that's just absolutely, incredible to hear. I had a question to ask, but since you were talking about that, when you met him at the Iowa caucus there, give us a sense at that time, that you've heard about dealing with politicians and people always go in there and talk to them. One, give us a sense of what you thought of, just in terms of his ability to take information that he's probably not that familiar with and to assess that and then take that and how quickly you think that all this came about. Were you shocked and surprised that something that you talked about had, came across so quickly in an executive order? Because we always hear from everybody else that he sort of like listens, but he doesn't really quite understand something. He delegates to other people. Give us a sense of what you were thinking when you were, talking to him about this, and how were you surprised at how quickly, basically he came on board?
I was not surprised because he's not a politician, and which means he's more than halfway there to being a highly intelligent man, not being. I didn't believe the propaganda, that was coming out of the mainstream media, that he was a stupid man and a troglodyte and all of that. I knew none of that was true. Just from other colleagues that were on his team, that were trying to help him get elected. I was surprised at how, he had never heard of EMP before. I was surprised at how quickly he picked up. We only had 45 minutes. It takes a lot of politicians. Well, some of them have been reading our reports for years and they still don't understand it. But in 45 minutes, not only did he grasp how important this was, but, basically made a commitment right there that this was a problem he was going to solve. And I think he would have done it sooner. It's, this executive order was signed on March 26th. Of course, it's been making its way through the federal bureaucracy for a lot longer than that. So, considering that Obama received this we sent draft copies of executive orders to President Obama for every year of 8 years of his presidency, and he did nothing. All right?
Wow.
Contrast. So this is an amazing contrast. And, I am pleased and I guess I wouldn't say surprised. I don't want to say that because, again, he's not a politician. A politician probably would have split the difference between us, the EMP Commission, and the deep state that wants to do nothing, and would take a middle course. When you're dealing with existential threats, you don't want to take a middle course, But we're not out of the woods yet, as I said. Yes, the president has signed an executive order. I'm disappointed that many of my colleagues think the war is won, because an executive order has been signed. No. One of my disappointments was I thought that when the executive order was signed, that perhaps the deep state and the electric power industry would finally see the writing on the wall and want to become part of the solution, would want to join with the president and become part of the solution. I didn't really think that would happen, but I hoped it might. But they proved almost immediately that it wasn't going to happen. And so they've gone to their last ditch, and we're in the last and most important phase of the struggle. And they're basically saying, come and get us. We're dug in deep, and we're going to try to wait out the Trump administration and hope that somebody else gets elected, and then we can continue our policy of doing nothing. Well, we just have to go in with bayonets and bury them in that last ditch before the president's term expires. Hopefully he'll be reelected, and then for sure they'll have no hope. But these people, the deep state and the lobbyists, they are a stubborn adversary. And
they certainly are. They
can't compromise. On this issue, there has been no compromise. It's you basically have to achieve the goal over their dead bodies. And that's what the EMP task force is doing. It's making a lot of dead bodies, a carpet of dead bodies of our adversaries, so we can achieve safety for the country from this threat, from the sun and from our adversaries that threatens the destruction of our civilization.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. He's the Executive Director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security and the Director of the U.S. Nuclear Strategy Forum. Dr. Pry, we have to take a quick break. Could you hold on for just a moment or two for us?
Certainly.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasir Shaikh and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this break.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Peter, do you have your books there? Okay, all set? I'll bring us back. And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir, Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Our guest this segment is Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. He's the Executive Director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security and Director of the U.S. Nuclear Strategy Forum. He's also the author of the books Blackout Wars and EMP Manhattan Project. Dr. Pride, you have those books so that you can show our viewers what they are looking like. All right. Black out. Thank you for that. Dr. Pride, you wrote an article, Are U.S. Submarines Vulnerable? And you write in this article that Moscow for decades spent vast resources on an enormous array of technologies, including satellites like Aerostat, trying to locate U.S. submarines hiding at sea. You also point out that ballistic missile submarines are the last line of defense, of deterrence and defense to defeat a surprise nuclear attack. Doctor, talk to us about this, and talk to us about the vulnerability of our submarine fleet.
Sure. The triad, we have a triad of land-based ICBMs, strategic bombers, and ballistic missile submarines to deter nuclear war. And the strategic bombers and the land-based ICBMs are more vulnerable today than ever. I mean, the Russians and even the Chinese have the ability to basically wipe out the bomber force and wipe out the ICBM force and wipe out our command and control bunkers and wipe out most of our ballistic missile submarine fleet if they were to attack us now on a day-to-day basis in a surprise attack before we could generate our forces. Daily, our submarine fleet has sunk from about 45 submarines during the Cold War to 14 today, and it's going to go down to 12 in the future. We need 2 submarines in port on a day-to-day basis to sustain one at sea. So with 12 submarines, that means we'll only have 4 submarines at sea at any given time. And that's basically it that would be able to survive an enemy surprise nuclear attack. They are the last best defense and deterrent against a surprise nuclear attack. And it has been an article of faith in Washington, sold by the U.S. Navy and the Department of Defense, that our submarines at sea are invulnerable. And a dangerous decision has been made, based on the assumption that our submarines are vulnerable, to deploy a warhead, a tactical nuclear weapon called the W76-2, to replace some of our strategic weapons on our ballistic missile submarines with this very low-yield tactical nuclear weapon, to try to compensate for the vast disparity that exists between us and the Russians in tactical nuclear weapons. They have at least a 10-to-1 advantage in tactical nuclear weapons. The problem is that the underlying assumption about doing this, that our submarines are invulnerable, is probably not true. Even during the Cold War, in the article, I described many sources, many serious people, who pointed out that the submarines could be vulnerable from a number of sources, just like espionage. Everybody seems to have forgotten the Walker spy ring, for example, where John Walker and a coterie of spies penetrated the U.S. Navy communications, discovered our submarine locational secrets, and gave them to the USSR. And people like John Lehman, who was then the Secretary of the Navy, and the director of the CIA at the time, and the deputy director of the CIA, all of them said, if we had gone to war with Russia then, they would have been able to destroy the ballistic missile submarines and probably win the Third World War. And the CIA pointed out that this vulnerability in our communications, once the barn door is open, that it could take decades. We could be vulnerable for decades. We might never be able to figure out everything they know because they can continually exploit the data. We've just forgotten about Walker and the fact that these guys cracked our communications at one time, and they might still be vulnerable. The Russians and Chinese have certainly not given up on espionage. If anything, they've gotten better at it. And in addition to the human agents, we now have cyber espionage going on, that had no precedent in the Cold War. During the Obama administration, the Russians actually penetrated the Joint Chiefs of Staff computers for 2 weeks. We don't know what they did, but it's possible that they might, through cyber means, have gotten critical data on submarines. Another thing is just sheer technology. There have been, during the Cold War, there were technologies that could have made our submarine vulnerable. I cite an expert, Roger Speed, who was an advisor to the U.S. Navy. And Speed pointed out that in the 1980s, there were technologies, there were hydrophones that could have been used if you had a hydrophone array to sweep ballistic missile submarine patrol areas, and you could find the subs in 2 days or less.
Well, listen, this is what we saw in Hunt for Red October.
Well, yeah. Well, Red October is one example. But 2 days or less, and the technology has only gotten better since then. In the article, I point out that there's this new technology called LIDAR. Okay, that archaeologists have used it. Using airborne lasers to penetrate the deep jungle canopies of Guatemala, and they've discovered 60,000 new Mayan structures, whole cities and towns that we didn't know about before, and it's completely transformed our evaluation of Mayan civilization. This was achieved not by nation states and putting their cutting-edge technology. This was achieved by a private sector company working with the University of Houston. All right? What could China and Russia achieve against our submarines if they were to exploit our modern cutting-edge technologies and they were putting everything into it, vast resources into it? I think it's foolish for us to assume that our submarines are vulnerable. We should be assuming that the bad guys might well have achieved a technological breakthrough so they could locate the subs and destroy them. And if you can locate the subs, you can destroy them. The rest of the article describes several different ways that submarines at sea can be destroyed through, for example, anti-submarine ballistic missiles or anti-ship ballistic missiles. China has these. They've got intermediate range. Now, even Iran has got these anti-ship ballistic missiles that basically have smart warheads. They can see a moving vessel. If you have a nuclear warhead of one of those things and you knew roughly where a submarine was, you could use one of these to very quickly destroy a submarine.
Dr. Pry, this is quite an extensive article, and unfortunately, time doesn't permit us to really do justice to it. But in your article, you talk about how the U.S. nuclear stockpile has been reduced, and the Russian nuclear stockpile has increased, and that's not even counting. You mentioned, but that's not even counting the Chinese nuclear stockpile. Have we reached the point that the idea of the mutually assured destruction theory is no longer going to work for us?
Oh, yes, we passed that a long time ago. I know people still talk about mutually assured destruction. The Democrats, for example, Adam Smith, taking the advice of plowshares, thinks that we can have a minimum deterrent, mutually assured destruction, if we get rid of all our ICBMs, get rid of our bombers, and reduce it to just 6 ballistic missile submarines. A Monad. That would be at a daily. Yeah, we would be able to sustain 2 submarines at sea. And he thinks, but if you do the calculations, right now, we do not have a mutual assured destruction capability against Russia, but they do against us. There was a mutual assured destruction is not just an idea. It was based on calculations that were done back in the 60s. We needed 400 equivalent megatons in order to destroy 25% of Russia's population and 75% of their industry. We need to be able to deliver on target 400 equivalent megatons, okay? We don't have that in our inventory anymore. They do, especially after a first strike, okay? You need to have 400 equivalent megatons deliverable against them after a first strike. I calculated, we passed that several years ago, where we would not be able to achieve even the mutual assured destruction goals, which was considered the foundation. I mean, the lowest we could go for many years. But in the aftermath of the Cold War, people just don't think about those calculations anymore on our side. The bad, I assure you, are still doing those calculations. And they know the kind of advantage they've achieved.
Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work, read your writings, and buy your books. And hold up those books one more time so our audience can check them out.
There are 2 books, EMP Manhattan Project and Blackout Wars. And they might be interested in the report. We didn't get to the Poseidon, which is this new Russian superweapon. This probably, I think, designed to go after our submarines, called Poseidon, Russia's new doomsday machine. Wow. All these reports and books are available from Amazon.com. And a lot of people carry my articles. I'm not a big believer in websites since I am so concerned.
Well, if you had a website, it would probably be like ours, and banned on Facebook anyway. But Dr. Pry, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thank you so much for having me.
And like I said, you know, unfortunately, with the time restraints, this is a great article. Great article, great report, and we really didn't have time to go into it in depth, but we hope by listening to this interview, our listeners and viewers would want to learn more and check it out. That's Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. And Dr. Pry, again, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless. And don't go away. Nasir and I will be back with more right after this break.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Well, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, Dr. Wright, we've got another one in the books. I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. Please tell our audience how they could follow you when you're not here on Conservative Commandos.
Certainly. Well, they can go to my email address, which is thenasirshakeshow1@gmail.com. That's thenasirshakeshow1@gmail.com, or at Facebook at The Nasir Shaikh Show, or at Twitter, which is simply at Nasir Shaikh Show. And I wanted to go... Anyways, wanted to, talk about our guests. We spoke with Adam Andrezjewski, who is the CEO and founder of OpenTheBooks.com, and he spoke to us about healthcare transparency. We also had Benjamin Friedman, who is a policy director at DefensePriorities.org, also an adjunct lecturer at George Washington University, speaking to us about the United States military withdrawal and disentangling from the Syrian war. And then finally, we spoke with Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, who's the executive director of the Task Force on National Homeland Security and the director of the U.S. Nuclear Strategy Forum. It's an absolutely brilliant, brilliant article. It'll make you think about that maybe, climate change and global warming isn't so bad after all.
Well, it's not important. Climate change and global warming is really not that important in the grand scheme of things. Protecting our country is.
Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful article about are the U.S. submarines vulnerable? So 3 great guests once again here on Conservative Commandos.
All right. But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.